All right, welcome. My name is Eddie Robertson. I'm chairman of the Capital Projects Committee, and I call the meeting to order. Let me go around the room and everyone introduce themselves, please, starting with Alderman Goodwin.
Terry Goodwin, Alderman Ward 4.
Karen Dixon, Alderman Ward 4.
Jeff Sassy, Alderman Ward 3.
Jesse Eckenroth, Chief of Operations.
Sarah Locke, Public Works Director.
Jim Waters, Alderman Ward 6. Michael Martin, Alderman Ward 2.
Lee Peterson, Ward 2 Alderman.
Mark Skidmore, Alderman Ward 1.
Stephen Winzenreed, City Engineer.
Lance Ray, Interim City Attorney.
And Bob Garza, Alderman Ward 3.
Thank you. Got a good crowd tonight. Got two action items. So first of all, on the agenda, I would like to suggest that we first take the rugby project so we can get that out of the way. So I would recommend to switch 2 to 1. Just swap those two, and exit 8 will be second. That's where I think our bulk of the discussion will be. And I would like to go ahead and get that project moved forward. So with that, are there any objections to that small amendment to the agenda? If not, we'll move forward. Minutes. We have the minutes. I hope you have reviewed them. I have. They looked right to me. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. For motion and second. All those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Next, the rugby project. So Sarah or Jesse, which one's going to talk about that briefly?
Sarah.
Okay.
Sure. So this is the portion of the project for the site work. So we the building, if you remember, is a prefab concrete structure that we're purchasing from a company. But this we bid the site work out just recently. The bids came in higher than expected, so we revisited the scope to see what we could do to try and get a little improvement on the overall cost there. And so we rebid that with some minor revisions. Admittedly, we couldn't make many revisions, and the bids came in essentially the same, if not even just a tad higher, with the same low bidder as the first time. So what we need in order to move the project forward, if Capital Projects is agreeable, we would need an additional funding from the from the hotel motel tax in the amount of $170,000 to be able to construct the site improvements, which I think that total came in. What was it, Stephen, with all of the options and alternatives?
$167,383.
What was the total?
Oh, the total bid. Sorry.
No, that's
No.
okay. Sorry.
It came in at $279,770.40.
And
What-
that, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What is our fund currently in our tourism hotel motel tax?
We have some fund balance, and if we pass the increase, there's plenty of fund balance to cover it. So it would essentially have no general fund impact.
Okay, great.
And this would be covered under state law, under the tourism, because it will help promote tourism.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Early on, a lot of this facility had been donated for specific restrooms and concession stands. Can any of that stuff that was donated be used to offset this cost?
Staff?
I don't believe it can. We weren't able to utilize the preliminary plan. So the site work, we opened it up for bid twice. Those that were potentially agreeable to donating resources, things like that, did not submit a bid on this project. So I don't believe that is an option.
Yes.
What was the cost of the original project before this request for increase?
When we put it out, I mean, what do we have in the budget right now?
Correct.
I think was $506,000, I believe it was. The concrete structure, I think, is 385,
374,
374.
375.
Okay, so it's about a 30% increase. Is that what we're seeing?
For the site work, yes. Yeah. Which is what we've seen on a
That's
lot of
hefty.
things we've put out.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, and it's a prefab building,
Yes.
and the site work will get the slab ready, the utilities, and crane and put the thing together, correct? Put the components together for the bathrooms and a small concession stand
Yes.
for the rugby fields.
It would complete the project, yes.
A large portion of the cost is a forced sewer main that has to get taken out to the street. So that's a substantial portion of the site work.
Any other questions for me?
Do we have 170,000 in the hotel motel tax to cover the extra?
Mr. Eckenroth said if the ordinance that I am carrying coverage passes tomorrow night to increase the hotel motel, there will be sufficient money. And
Okay.
it passed unanimously the first reading. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe even without it, we may still be okay. But definitely with it,
Great.
the fund balance will be sufficient to cover.
Any other questions?
Just one.
Okay.
Assuming this passes and goes to the board, mayor and alderman, passes and everything, when are they expecting it to be completed? Is it gonna be a year or so or what?
No, I don't think so. Steve, would you
I
like to
can
speak to
speak
that?
to that. Yeah, as far as when the bathrooms would be fully installed and usable. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. That's my question, yeah.
The brushes themselves are currently in production, and with the delay in advertising to deal with the funding elements of things, we've had to push out delivery.
Right,
So working with the manufacturer on the building, we could have delivery on those by September if we can get the site work underway in short order. So, I mean, that's an optimistic delivery timeline, but I would say this fall.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion, and repeat the motion that you would like for us to make.
Sure.
Sarah.
Consider a motion along the lines of allowing staff to award the construction of the site work for the rugby project to the lowest bidder and to appropriate an additional $170,000 from the hotel motel fund.
Okay,
So moved.
so moved, and we need a second and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the committee say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Total, 279.
Thank you.
$279,000
Thank
for
you,
the
Sarah.
site. Thank you.
The next item is exit 8, and we've had Alderman Garten come in as well for the record, so she's here. So exit 8, I had, in fact, Craig mentioned to me, what about GNRC funding for this project? So we started the ball rolling, and there are some steps to be able to qualify for the GNRC funding. This project could qualify for that fund. So to be able to get in line and to qualify for some money from the GNRC on this funding, we need to do a certain number of steps. So Sarah, you want to kind of walk us through exit 8 and what we need to do to be able to try to get some money from the GNRC?
Sure. So the first thing, we would need to have this project, request to have this project added to the regional transportation plan, which is essentially the long-range plan. It is through the GNRC. It is fiscally constrained. So they do have some criteria associated with even adding projects to that plan. Then once it's in there, and concurrently, and speaking with the GNRC, we could request to have this project added to the TIP. Because that is also fiscally constrained, we would, in order to have this project added at this stage, we would need to show that we have the funding in place, at least through right of way. So that would be the next step. And of course, we could apply for grants. That would be an intermediate step for funding. But that's the process to get it into the TIP. And then once we go to construction, when we see what those bids come in as, we can request additional funding at that time.
So what would does the GNRC have different levels of funding, for example, 50-50, 20/80, 80/20, do they have that discretion within the GNRC? How is that determined?
Sure, that's more related to the bucket of funding that they're pulling from, if you will. So like surface transportation grant funding, STBG, which is what a lot of projects are funded under, that's an 80/20 split. So it's really their federal dollars that they have discretionary control over. And so that's the federal government really dictates what those splits are for those different funding buckets, but most of them are 80/20. The state LIC funding, that's a state bucket specifically, that's 50/50, and that's what we have right now for that smaller portion.
And what size is the bucket typically? The pool of money in that, did you call it LIC?
Oh, typically they don't exceed 4 million at a 50/50 split, but I've been made aware that there have been some exceptions.
Questions?
Exceptions are good. I thought we were already part of the regional transportation plan for Exit 8.
That's a question for staff.
It's not currently in the RTP. No. So that would be the first step.
Were we on it at one time?
I'm not aware of this project ever being part of that, and neither is my contact with the GNRC. So I would have to say no. I don't think that it was.
Okay. And so what's the process to get on that plan?
Sarah?
They have amendment cycles, and they have one coming up in July. So we submit the request, and then we would submit the contract that we have with TDOT, and then we would have to provide verification that we have funding in place through the phase that we're in right now.
Okay. Is there any cost associated with putting that plan together for GNRC?
No, we have the plans already, so we just have to submit the request.
And is there a number that GNRC is looking for?
They're going to want to see all of the costs associated with the phase that we're in right now to be funded. So
Do we currently have enough invested to get their attention?
we do in the budget as it stands right now.
Okay.
Yes, that would cover it.
So they're looking to see if we have fully funded the right-of-way acquisition
That's
plan.
right. Yes,
And in the budget, that is sufficient, staff believes, to cover the cost to acquire the land. At the present time,
that's right.
the longer we wait, that land cost is likely to go up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in order to try to qualify for GNRC funding, we need to approve the budget that's allocated for the purchase of right-of-way
That's correct.
for that project. Any other questions?
What we already know, but just for the record again, and I can't think right now how much it is. What is the anticipated monies that we're going to have to spend for right-of-way acquisition?
Currently, not current, but the only estimate that we have is roughly 3.8 million.
Okay, how much is GNRC going to? How much money are we asking for? Is it up to them to give us whatever? Like, I know they've got a set amount, I'm sure.
Right. In order to get it into the TIP as it stands right now, because the TIP is already established for this 4-year cycle. So they're not going to add projects in for phases that are not fully funded, basically. So we would have to fund we would have to show that this entire phase is funded to have it added to the TIP because it is fiscally constrained to the budget. But once we get to construction, all we can do is share with them what we have and what the bids are, just like we did with Sanders Ferry and
Right.
light synchronization, and they'll evaluate whether they can meet any portion or all, probably not all, but any portion of that.
Okay, what are we anticipating the construction costs are going to be? Do you know?
Roughly 28 million.
And okay, I'll hold my comments at this point. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
Well, wait a minute, I do.
Okay.
How much money do we have now?
Currently in the budget, I believe it was 2.7 million for this fiscal year that we're closing right now. And then we were looking to bring it to 4.8 million for including that 2.7.
Right, okay, thank you.
If we walk away from the project, Lance, what's our legal obligations? Because BOMA signed a contract in 2016. So what's our legal obligation? You haven't had a lot of time to look at that contract, but
I did look at the 2016 contract, there's a 2021 amendment. It doesn't allow the city to terminate the agreement or just walk away from it, otherwise it would be considered in breach if it did. If it's in breach, the contract just simply says that the city would be liable for all damages sustained by virtue of the breach. So that could mean a lot of things. It could mean what value could be attributed to all the past resources that TDOT has put into this project, including but not limited to what they've already paid. I think they've paid, $500,000, close to $1 million on our behalf for just their part of the agreement. That doesn't include any other resources that they could say that they have attributed to it. Certainly the future requirements, they would not be required to do as far as the remainder of the $2 million that they committed to. If it got into litigation, of course, attorney fees and whatever else they throw in there, you just never know. It's like if they breached against us, we would come up with every single penny of resource that we have been damaged as a result of their breach, and we would sue for it if that were the case. I'm not saying litigation is automatic. It would definitely happen, but I don't know. You never know. But then, with TDOT and the city, as with any municipality or county, local government, it's not really if you would think of a business-to-business contract, we'll just take our business elsewhere kind of thing. It's more of a relationship endeavor between the two entities. So there could be some other legal ramifications. Other ramifications that aren't legal if we walk away from it.
well, and in fact, one of those ramifications was a veiled danger, I think, about future projects. Sarah, what do you think was implied in that statement? In the email, the date on the email was
2019?
it was from
Was it January
January
2019?
Mr. Allen.
Oh, this
January
year.
12,
Okay.
2023.
Oh, okay.
Where it says that if the city, I'm quoting, if the city didn't proceed with the agreed commitment, then it would be difficult to enter into subsequent agreements. So what in I guess bureaucratic interpretation, what does that mean, do you believe?
I would interpret that to mean that we would not be successful in future projects and funding through TDOT.
And how many current projects do we have that TDOT is involved in running? I know the Walton Ferry is one.
We have Walton Ferry, Old Shackle, Sanders Ferry Greenway, light synchronization, phase 1 and 2, West Main Street, ADA improvements, Drake's Creek Stop 30. So, and then to, kind of waiting in the wings, we have Indian Lake widening and also Rockland Road. So all of those projects, anything that runs through local programs requires a contract with TDOT, similar to the one that you've all seen for this project. So I took it to mean that we'd not be successful in future contracts.
Which phase 1 of light synchronization is pretty much done, but it could mean maybe if not a rejection, a slow walking phase 2. Have they signed off all that the state needs to on phase 2?
No,
They have not.
No.
has the state signed off all they need to on the straightening of Walton Ferry and Old Shackle?
No, so we're
They
not in
have not.
construction yet.
So they could, there's a possibility that, that project could be potentially impacted as well. Potentially. And all of this is potential. We don't know, we don't know how strict that they're going to abide by, but all I can read are the words.
Right.
Has TDOT ever been upset with us on another project for slow walking that they or for not moving, that they have kind of slow walked a project that we're aware of?
I believe that there were some issues. I was not involved in those conversations, but with the center point traffic signal at the 386 ramp, I believe there were some conversations about needing to make progress on the LIC project.
That may be the reason why it was delayed as much as it was.
That's my understanding.
Alderman Skip.
Yes, well, what about all the other projects that we have that they've had for years, like Walton Ferry Road and Old Shackle Island Road, the red light right there, straightening that up? How many years have they had that? And what have we done? Absolutely nothing.
Right.
And what about the other, about the widening of Walton Ferry Road and Saunders Ferry Road? How many years did we have to go through to finally get what we got from them? We probably could have paid for it ourselves. I don't like people holding a gun to our head as if they've got all the cards. That's not the way government is supposed to work, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm speaking loudly, not because I'm mad at anybody. It's because of this mask right here. I just want everybody to understand my position on that. I'm tired of doing that kind of business. I don't do business that way. The city of Hendersonville does not do business that way. I had a mayor in the 1980s that did that. And I think we did. We even censored him because he did business that way. I'm not for that. I'm not for this now, the way that we're being done, and the position that we're being placed upon. I'm ready to pay them the $500,000 that we own and say, bye-bye. Good to see you. We'll come back when we need you. But I'm not going to let Mr. Allen or anybody threaten us, or at least to have our staff feel threatened by that word, because that's not good government. And if we have to go above his head to discuss things with somebody, we can do that. It's been done before, I'm sure. And I don't think that we're the only city that has been done this way. And it's just not good business for them to be doing us that way. I had a question to, I was getting ready to say Alderman Ray.
That's all right.
I'm sorry about that, buddy. And that was a great Facebook of you and your wife, by the way. That was that was a nice picture. Here's my question to you. Under that contract that we have on there, did it give the set amount of what was paid by what the original price of that project is written in back then of how much that it was?
It just has an exhibit, and yes, it does have estimated costs.
And what was the estimated cost at that time?
It looks like it's around a little over 5 million.
That's correct. I knew that's what, I don't have to say it because I knew that I was on the board when I supported it, because I supported this project when it was only $5 million. I do not support it for how much is it now? 40 something million dollars, which is unbelievably ridiculous. So I don't know whether, I can understand them suing us, but we agreed to that because it was $5 million. God, I'd do it right now if it was $5 million, but it's not. And I think that any court, any judge will look at the price, what we have now, and look at our past, what our budget is, and he's not going to hold us liable for that. That's my personal opinion, because it'll bankrupt our city. I predict that when this project, and I'm sure that it'll pass, I have no doubt about it, and I've been here before by being the one that said of course I don't do this, but I just kind of look and smile and going about my business. But I'll tell you, if it passes, I will guarantee you that it's going to be more than $40 million when this thing is finally done and over. I guarantee it. I guarantee that it will. Because I don't know of a project that we've been involved with the state that has ever come in right on budget. It's just not going to happen. We all know this. We're all elected. We've been down this road about projects in the city. Haven't we?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So that's my position on that. That's how I feel about it. I think if they try to sue us, I think the judge, a judge will say, I can understand, we can talk to, or we can even talk to the state about it. Look, we're good on 5 million. We voted for it. We agreed back then because it was good money. But now, you're pressuring us to do this thing, and it's over $40 million, and it's going to probably be more than that. And I say that is just wrong. Our city cannot afford it unless you all, which I'm certainly not going to, vote for a tax increase. Absolutely not. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, look at our country now. And I'm starting to vent, and I'll close because now I'm getting way out there. But my final point is this: go to the store, go buy something, look at the inflationary prices. I'm not saying whether the Democrats or the Republicans are who's at fault of this. I don't even care about that. What I care about is when people go to the grocery store and it takes $200 for a family to fund their family food that for a week, and their check is $250 a week. So that gives them $50 to get gasoline. I don't know how people are making it. I don't know how this city is making it. But we need to be prepared because next year is going to be a year of all years. I'm telling you, it's going to be worse. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I was getting ready to get on a vent on that, but I didn't mean to do that. But I think you get my view.
You was on it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for that because I'm not mad. It's just this mask, and hopefully within the next weeks I'll be able to get it off. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, I have another meeting, so I have to exit, but I have one question for Mr. Ray. If we give back TDOT half $500,000, is that correct?
I don't know the exact number. As far as what they've contributed,
Yes. Is it roughly 500,000? Do we have to close exit 8 to Main Street if we agree to do that?
I was actually thinking about mentioning that because my disclaimer is that I've only looked at this contract and the amendment to it in 2016. Don't hold this against me, but I was on the board as an alderman between 2006 and 2010 when this was voted on also when it originally came to place. And it was my understanding, although I never saw an agreement, that we couldn't have the new Somersville Road without eliminating the at-grade crossing there. And maybe Mr. Skidmore, to Mr. Waters' extent that he was there too, can speak. That you remember, I don't know if there's an agreement out there that says anything like that, but I do remember it was conveyed to us that we had to close that or have a tunnel, eliminate the at-grade crossing if we were going to have that road, which we now have. So,
I would, Mr. Chairman, like to get clarification on that. Because I think if we do close that exit, we have to build a new fire hall. And we saw what happened at Durham Farms. It was 100% over initial budget. So you can count on $6 million for a new fire hall. And I'm wondering if Hendersonville would even be investing $5 million into exit 8 once we get all the other funding sources involved.
I think that we need to go after every funding source possible.
I totally
So
agree.
I'm going to make a motion before you leave. Let's have a.
Okay,
I'm going to make a motion that we move forward in the right-of-way acquisition so that we can qualify for GNRC funding for this project. And I'll make that motion.
I'm gonna second that, and can I say why? I think dropping it now, I think that there may be an opportunity in the future that we do drop it if we don't make headway. But dropping it now does not make sense to me in terms of business or municipality, since it's just too risky. I will second your motion.
Okay, any discussion before the vote? So let me repeat the motion. I made a motion to recommend that we proceed with the right-of-way purchase that will enable us to get in line for GNRC funding for this project. After that right-of-way acquisition, if we don't get GNRC funding, we'll revisit it at that time.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
Okay, it passes by a 4-1 vote. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good birthday.
Okay,
All right,
the-
see you tomorrow.
The next item on the agenda,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
how much time do we got before we got to Metropolitan?
it starts
Anytime.
at 7.
I know that. I said, how much time do we have here?
Probably 30 more minutes. We probably need to leave here at 6:30. So,
You think it's best if it's not on the committee, wait until Bowman to talk?
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to take up your time because
no,
that's important.
yeah, let's talk. Let's open it up. So we've had the vote, but Alderman Waters would like to make comments.
I'm just reading Mr. Allen's letter here and Attorney, the 16 contract and the 21 amendments, is that what you just cited?
Yes, sir.
Both of them?
That's what I've reviewed.
I missed that. I missed the amendment. Did the amendment?
The only thing the amendment does is, so this is had the original from 2016 as a deadline that it has to be done by February 21st, 2021. And the amendment extends that to February of 2024, I believe.
24, yeah. Let me just say, and I'm not gonna get going. But as I read this, it says Paul Deggs, Degges, is that the way you pronounce it?
That's right.
And this respond to your letter to them to start with, right? You wrote them
That's the
first.
January.
You wrote them on this date, and they replied to your letter, right?
That's right.
Okay. I want to ask some more questions, but I'm not going to do it. All he is saying is that it would be difficult to enter into any subsequent agreement. He doesn't say they're gonna close nothing. They don't say they're gonna sue us. They don't say that. That just says it's gonna be difficult for us to get a working relationship on this project, right?
that's true.
Okay. I mean, people keep saying this and that, they're gonna do this. They was gonna do this back in 2016, I think, if I read my papers right, when it first started. They was gonna close it if we don't do something. I think it's still open, it was a while ago. But, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna hold my comments to the Bowman meeting. I don't take up everybody's time.
And I have to say, Mr. Alderman Waters, you've been consistent because you voted against the 2016 action. You were, I think, one of two that voted against it.
Yeah.
So you've been consistent throughout this. And none of us want to spend this money, but for the betterment of the city, this is not in Ward 6. This is not in Ward 4 or 2 or 1, but for the betterment of the city, sometimes we have to look at the greater good. And it sure seems to me that something needs to be done over there. I wasn't here when the Indian Lake tip and all that process began, but it is what it is, and we got to try to fix it. And hopefully we can get some GNRC funding. Hopefully today the county will help us. If not this year, maybe next year. Maybe we can get some funding from the federal government. I mean, the mayor is working hard to try to solve this problem, but we're not elected to. We're elected to make the tough decisions, and so this was a tough decision for me because there's projects in Ward 6 that I would love to see done, but
Amen.
but we this is an important project for the city. So thank you. I know there'll be more discussion, I'm sure, during the budget, because this is the funding for this is in the budget that we passed on the first reading. So
Can
okay.
I just add?
Yes,
Just
yeah.
because it is in my ward, it's in Ward 5. And I appreciate everyone's thoughts about it and their comments, and especially Alderman Skidmore and Waters. But I would hate to see us abandon this project right now. I think that if we continue seeking funding through, like you said, the state, through the county, through the federal government, through GNRC, I mean, we can definitely slash this price down. Like, we can get it down with help from those. I would like to see us move forward with it at this time.
The interesting thing that this project is not going to just be used by city residents.
Right.
But people going to Station Camp, county residents are going to be using this. And plus, I pay city taxes, but last I looked, I pay county taxes too. I'm a county taxpayer as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully today the county commission can approve the finance chairman's recommendation. We'll see. So this is a moving ball, and all of us working together. We're not all going to agree, and that's okay. That's probably healthy.
Yeah.
That's probably healthy. But I appreciate everyone's comments, and we got to try to solve some problems. So the next item is I asked for people to submit some for long range planning, some road suggestions in your wards that needed improving. I think that this input is important to the staff to be able to hear from what we're hearing from constituents. And I know every day or every week you hear from constituents of those improvements. And I know that Alderman Peterson, I think, has submitted his, but you also put down a few, Sarah. Why don't we go through that list?
All right.
That list that you have, and that's tab 3, I think. In your notebooks, if you brought it.
Keith and I got together and discussed some of what we see in the city for improvements. So the list that we came up with was Sanders Ferry, which we would estimate between 20 and 25 million. Without design, obviously, that's just a rough estimate. So that goes for all of these. Forestry Tree interchange improvements. When that widening comes through and they create that interchange, we see the need for improvements to Forestry Tree and a connection to be made from Molly Walton Drive. So that's one that we identified. Stop 30 road improvements. That's on there for estimated between 5 and 15 million, just depending on the outcome of the plan that they're going through right now through the planning department for that land use and transportation plan. Drake's Creek Road improvements, estimated between 5 and 10 million. Now that could be spot improvements, or it could be, widening for dual left turn lanes, or that's kind of undetermined, but we see the need for some improvements there. And then traffic circulation spot improvements. So some examples of those would be potentially a roundabout that was shown in the Westlake plan at Imperial and Rockland Road, potentially a roundabout at Saundersville Road and Myrtlewood / Innsbrook, or Millstone and Stonecrest come in. Those were two of the measures that we identified through that. And then also we see the need to advocate for the widening of the rest of New Shackle Island Road, specifically north of 386. So that is a state route. So we would like to see the state, of course, pursue that as a project. So those were the ones that we came up with.
So-
Can I ask you
Yeah.
about
Big
your
tickets.
Drake's Creek improvement? So you're talking about the roundabout down Autumn at the Durham Farm?
No, sir, that's a current project. So these would be, these are new projects
You
that
mean-
we see the need for.
Explain to me, what do you mean it's a current project?
It's
Are we
current,
doing it now?
it's in right of way. So we already have funding associated with that project.
Okay.
Whereas these projects would be completely new. They're currently unfunded and undesigned.
So that would, this project on Drake's Creek would tie in with the bridge work that we're doing at that intersection
Correct.
and provide better access into the parks.
Yeah.
That we know that we're going to be building at Volunteer Park.
Yeah.
And so it recognizes the need for improvements there. Now, Sanders Ferry, are any of these projects that you're talking about, can they be done in pieces, like phase 1 and phase 2? I've
Absolutely.
ridden out at Sanders Ferry, and y'all, that's in your ward, you know better than me, but if we could at least extend it to Imperial,
Mhm.
make improvements to Imperial in phase 1,
Yes.
it would be less than it would be a fraction of that amount,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct. And that was the other spot improvement we had identified as well, was Imperial and Sanders Ferry. Couldn't think of a third one right there, but
And I've noticed when I try to turn off of Main Street onto Sanders Ferry Road, it's horrible there. It's backed up. So does this price include 2 turn lanes going into Sanders Ferry Road?
no, that would be a pretty significant project in and of itself. And the mayor had sent a letter to TDOT requesting that they evaluate that. Steve and I actually had a call today with one of their engineers and their right-of-way guys. And that's without it being a major project through, GNRC and local programs with some grant funding associated. They don't see that as a feasibility. Just because it is a bridge right there. So we'd have to widen the bridge over Drake's Creek, as well as widening Sanders Ferry to add that additional receiving lane there.
And we're going to have the cooperation of the state, right?
And the
Yeah.
core.
DOT,
And the core.
DOT to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments in your wards? Yes, Karen.
So Alderman Goodwin and I, we have a ward that we virtually have no businesses, a couple of churches, and the rest of it's residential, right? And one park. And most of our homes, the majority of them, were built in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And a lot of our homes have not seen any repaving since they were built. They're crumbling, and we constantly get the request to come patch our roads, do something. And you guys come out, you patch it the best you can. But for example, we had a request last week on Diddle. And I drove over there. Literally, my car was like this. There's only 15, 20 houses on that road. But then you turn onto another road and there's another 15, 20 houses with the same, you could actually get out of the car and pick up the asphalt and throw it like rocks. That's how it's crumbling. And I understand that these are important, but we also got to think about the folks who pay their tax dollars to walk their children in their neighborhood with, in their buggies and in their carts and they're driving their bicycles on those streets. So that's my plea, is that we have a balance. We look at a balance.
Well, for sure, with the increase in the cost of paving, if we're going to make progress, we're going to have to spend more money on paving in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse, I think I've mentioned to you, instead of just having a number, a dollar amount to try to outline, we want to pave 20 miles of roads, or whatever the numbers work out, and then we work toward funding that. So to have a set number, have we increased paving budget? Yes, but I don't think it's done it to the degree that our constituents are asking for.
Right.
We need to do more. Unfortunately, we don't have the money in the budget for that. Yeah, I take that. Good comment. Any other
Yeah,
comments?
Eddie.
Yeah.
So I know, 258 or 252 is New Shackle Island Road. And prior to me getting on board, Costco had been signed up. And the traffic study says everyone's gonna enter from 386. Well, not if you live on the peninsulas. You're gonna turn left on Main Street and right on New Shackle Island Road. Because why would you go through Indian Lake or even Saundersville, which is all traffic issues, when it's easier to come down Main Street and turn left on New Shackle Island Road? So obviously that needs to be increased because we lose a guardrail every 2 weeks. And when the Costco opens, more trucks are gonna be delivering goods there. But the bigger issue I have is, we still have a lot of citizens who walk down New Shackle Island Road. There's no sidewalks. And if you study the police report, our incident report, it's big. A lot of people have been hit. Bicycles have been hit, just walking people. I've picked up people, strangers, saying, please don't walk on this road. Because you're gonna get hit because people's on their cell phone. So I know it's a state project. But I still disagree with the traffic study that everyone's gonna enter Costco from 386, because it's not gonna happen. Especially off Imperial, off Saunders Ferry, Walton Ferry, probably even Indian Lake. It's easier to turn left on Main or right on New Shackle Island. So we're gonna have a big problem when Costco opens, regardless of what the traffic study said.
So we have funded some sidewalks on Main Street, correct, through the ADA funds? We got a grant for it.
We did, yes.
Why did we pick Main Street for sidewalks instead of maybe New Shackle?
Sure. So this grant in particular was most competitive for revisions to existing sidewalks to kind of retrofit to bring them into ADA compliance. And those along the stretch selected along Main Street were some of the most non-compliant in the city that had been identified in our transition plan. So we felt that section made us more competitive. And that's why.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alderman Garza, I see people down walking on New Shackle all the time.
Scary.
Yeah, to the restaurants, to the stores.
Yeah.
And so that is a dangerous situation over there. Good point. All right, we're kind of brainstorming. Anybody else would like to mention a project that you want the staff to kind of put on their long-term list to be working on? Alderman Seth?
Yeah, I wanted to just bring up a pretty dangerous situation over on Center Point. And I emailed about this as well, but there's in between the two entrances to Mansker Farms, they're right past, as you're heading north on Center Point Road, past the substation. There's a sharp curve. There's a little bridge over a creek, and then a sharp turn right at that bridge with trees and shrubs all blocking the visibility. You got one sign as you're heading northbound. There's one sign that says curve 30, or just says 30 in this curve. There's nothing coming south. I stood there for 30 minutes and watched as cars zip through there going 60, 70 miles an hour on Center Point Road into the opposite oncoming traffic lanes, both directions doing this. And you can see in I've actually talked to the homeowner. You can see tire tracks on his grass, several sets of them, of people who just were going too fast and couldn't make the turn. He's had his mailbox taken out 4 times this year already and had to replace it. It's just a dangerous section right there. I would love to see that repaired once and for all, or at least like have something that's in your face, flashing lights. Hey, you got to slow down here, because this is, right now there's literally these little reflector signs that aren't even at the corners of the bridge. And then that 130 mile per hour sign, which you can't hardly even see. So I think at a minimum, we need to make it very visible that that's coming up. And if we can widen that bridge, I know that's a much bigger project. And I worry that widening that bridge would encourage faster speeds, not slower. So
That's also floodplain there, so it's a little complicated as far as widening the bridge.
yeah,
But,
I'm sure.
From your email, we did add that to our list of evaluations for a safety audit. See
Great.
what improvements.
Yeah. I would wager to say it's probably one of the most dangerous sections. Definitely more than 3, and if not, in the whole city.
I concur. Mansfield Farms, especially where Jeff lives, has a lot of families with young drivers getting their license at 16.
Yeah.
And my friend's son, fortunately safe, went through the same situation and collided with a car. The other guy came into his lane. It's just too fast. But once again, I'm not picking on younger drivers, but when you're 16, you don't have the experience or the knowledge to do some of the things that are necessary. And your neighborhood has a lot of young drivers coming up. So I totally agree with you.
I can't remember when I was 16. So, you got better memory than I do. Any other, these are good discussions. Any other comments regarding projects? And I know the staff is writing them down. We'll have the minutes.
One thing I do want to say, I just want to thank the staff and all the work that you guys have been doing. I mean, listen, it's going to take 15, 20 years to pave all of our roads, guys. And they're doing a heck of a job in just the last couple of years that they've had actual funding that they didn't have before. And you came through Mansfield Farms and you guys fixed some of the sidewalks, which I really appreciate. Thank you for
Big
that.
pothole.
The
Big pothole.
potholes, yeah, that were through there. So,
You know,
I've been impressed.
the modus operandi of the city on road improvements have been developers.
True story.
But the age and the time that this city can depend upon developers to make improvements in our roads has passed. It's over.
Hallelujah.
And so what that means, folks, that means we're gonna have to have the guts to do what's necessary to move forward on some of these projects.
Yeah.
So the age of the developers building our roads is over in Hendersonville. First of all, we're running out of land. And the second, citizens, Michael can attest to this, they don't want that. So I'm just saying, I'm going to be bringing up a matter at the end of BOMA tomorrow night that will generate some discussion. And I've thought about it, I prayed about it, so we'll talk about it tomorrow night. I've already told Mark about it.
I don't know anything about it.
So
You said you
we'll
talked
see.
to Mark about something?
He's probably forgotten it already.
Yeah, I don't even know what he's talking about.
Sunshine Law.
I didn't lobby.
I don't
I
know.
didn't lobby. So
That's right.
any other discussion on that, future projects? I just think those that fail to plan to fail. So we need to plan, and we need to somehow come up with the resources to fund these and get moving, because I think our citizens demand it. So any other items to come before? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
Alderman Goodwin,
Second.
Alderman Dixon. All those approve motion? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Equitable breach value.
Sir.
Did they record that?
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
It just hit me.
it was live streamed, wasn't it?
Oh my God, I didn't know
Well,
that.
thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, thanks a lot.